thing?
We sometimes have difficult and tense situations that happen in the community because of perceptions that folks have of individuals, because of the color of their skin, because of their gender, their orientation, or their appearance. This case, I think, is no different than many of those cases. So I'm pleased as a voice for the civil rights community to bring Briana Sandy before you today to talk about what she experienced in this establishment, how it made her feel, and to try to answer the question of where we go from here. There's been some speculation in the media about who she is. She's a student, 55-year-old student. She's a cancer survivor. She's a transgender American and a committed Christian. And so this situation has brought together, I think, some unusual parts. The owner of this establishment, the person who was profiled and victimized, and Baptist civil rights clergy, to try to figure out how we can move forward. We are in a strange time because now more than ever transgender folks are at the forefront of the news. We're all certainly aware of Bruce Jenner, now Caitlyn Jenner, and the transformation that she has made. And we know that there are folks that are seeking now to take away the gold medal that she earned and take away the Arthur Ashe, or have the Arthur Ashe Award from the ESPYs denied. And what we're here today to do is to make sure that Briana, or Bree, as she prefers to be called, does not have her dignity taken away because of the situation before us. The ignorance of some people can lead to discrimination and hurt. And we're not here to excuse that. Some people, when it comes to race, when it comes to gender, when it comes to orientation, have, what I've called an earth M flat and sun do move mentality. You can't change people like that. But we're optimistic that our community can learn from this. So without any more from me, I present to you Miss Briana Sandy and her attorney, Benjamin Taylor, to share her story and some additional words before you hear from me again. Thank you.
Hi. My name is Briana Sandy. I came in here to this bar on Saturday afternoon, shortly before the Belmont Stakes was to go off. I was originally going to go downtown to a D-backs game. I'm a season ticket holder since day one back in '98. And because of the change in the policy at Chase Field, I can't take any security with me. Being that I am a trans female, I had to discard any security items that I would have to protect myself. And when I realized the game was a little bit later than normal, it's normally at 5 and it was at 7, I decided that in better interest of my own safety to forego going to the game. I then called the D-backs in exchange for a future game. And anyway, as I was finished doing that transaction over the phone with the Diamondback season ticket office, I then decided that I would just go home, and right as I was about to go home, I got a text app notification on my ESPN app saying that it's almost post time for the Belmont Stakes and don't miss history for American Pharaoh. Well, I was like, I had no idea it was that late in the afternoon, so I was getting my car repaired just a couple miles down the road, and that's why I was here. And so anyway, what I did then is I entered into the maps to find the nearest bar, and there was one right across the street from the park and ride, I mean, literally 200 feet away. And so within a matter of seconds, I was parked out front and decided to come into this place. And then as soon as I looked over in the corner of the front of the bar lounge area, I saw the NBC Peacock logo, so I knew that they were going to be showing the race. So I walked up, and I was greeted pleasantly by people when I walked in here. And people said, "Good afternoon, welcome," hi, and I returned their their greetings. And so I then walked up to the bar, and as soon as I walked up to the bar, the bartender was looking at me, and she was doing her thing, and I was just waiting for a few seconds, and some lady who was sitting next to me said hi, and I said hi. And then some guy came up and said something with the word service, and that's all I heard. And before I knew it, the bartender said, "I can't serve you drinks now." And I'm like, she said, "I can't serve you alcohol now." And I'm like, what? And I wasn't going to have alcohol. I have multiple sclerosis, so the last thing I needed to do was drink in a strange bar, alcohol, and have a rental car at the time. Not a good combination. So what I did then is I said, well, I was about to say I was just going to order a Coke and watch the race. It's only a 2-minute race, right? And I haven't missed, by the way, in case you're wondering, I haven't missed a single Triple Crown race since I was a kid, seeing Secretariat, Seattle Slew, and Affirm, so I didn't want to miss this one. I knew he was going to win. I knew that when I saw the Preakness. So anyway, and before I knew it, she said, "I can't serve you drinks." And I'm like, what? He said, we don't serve your kind here. And I'm like, I honestly didn't just hear that, did I? And I felt like at that point I had stepped out of the time that I'm in all the way back 5+ decades ago into the Deep South as a black man in an all-white restaurant. And before I knew it, this bouncer guy walks over to me and just leans towards me and tells me, "You're going to have to go." And then I'm like, okay, why? What happened? And then he said, "You're going to have to go now," and pointed to the front door, and then stood there by the front door waiting for me to leave with all the hot air rushing in off the street. And I'm like, I'd better leave. I don't want any trouble. And the last thing, I want to do is ever get arrested. Because if I am ever arrested being a trans female, because I have not had my sexual reassignment surgery, I still have my male anatomy below. And because of that, anywhere in the United States, I can be jailed with men, even though I'm legally and medically female, and I have been since September. So the last thing I wanted to do, when I just only found that out a few days ago, was to even get into any kind of an altercation and end up in jail with a group of men. So anyway, I at that point started walking towards the door, and I said, "Am I being kicked out because I'm transgender?" And then he goes, "No comment." And I was like, that's like a non-denial denial. And I was kind of in shock because I really thought maybe just the bar wasn't open, and maybe they were having a private meeting or something. I didn't know their hours or anything. I just walked in, and all I wanted to do was see a horse race and history and have a drink. And that's pretty much all I have to say. I did call back the bar and I asked them if they wanted to do this, and I asked for the bartender, and I said, "Are you the person who just said you wouldn't serve me?" And she said, "Yeah." And I told her that, I said, "That's probably not a good idea because I have a few friends." And she said, "Well, I don't care who you know." And I was telling her I'm not a hooker, and I made that clear. And she goes, "I don't care what you are." And then I said, "If you really want to do this," and then she just hung up on me. And I was kind of shocked that that's the way I'm being treated in the year 2015. And so, anyway, that's pretty much all I have to say.
Good afternoon. I am Benjamin Taylor, attorney at law from the law office of Benjamin Taylor, and I represent Miss Sandy. Basically, we want to say that civil rights is important, no matter who, what, gender, religion, race. And Miss Sandy deserves rights also. The city of Tempe has an ordinance not to discriminate. She walked into the bar and she wasn't served. That's discrimination. That's wrong. And what we want today is at least an apology. Nobody has apologized to Miss Sandy directly yet. Just an apology right now. Nobody has apologized to Miss Sandy. So her civil rights were violated. We ask for at least an apology right now, and we look at other options. Thank you.
In the course of civil rights advocacy, you have to talk to both sides of the issue. When folks sat in the 1940s and 50s and 60s for equal accommodations, public accommodations, it wasn't just for African Americans. It was for people of every color, red, yellow, black, brown, and white, gay or straight, rich or poor, Jew or Gentile, so that everyone could be treated fairly. In the spirit of that advocacy, despite there still being perhaps civil consequences, perhaps legislative changes that need to happen after today, I do believe Miss Sandy will see and experience some history. She may not have been here for American Pharaoh's Triple Crown, but she is here today to receive an apology and to have her humanity and her dignity affirmed by the manager of this establishment, who I also want to welcome forward at this time. I want to thank you, sir. I think it takes an individual of high character and good business sense to come before the public and before this individual who was hurt, who was injured, and who felt like their personhood was attacked. And so, for the good of our community, and I think the future of our community, I'm glad you have this opportunity to offer an apology, and you have an opportunity, Bree, to accept and try to move forward together. So,
Yeah.
get that up.
Yeah,
No punches, okay?
Nah, I think
Don't hit a
she
lady.
can take me. I'm not gonna. You crazy? I'd love to apologize if you felt you were slighted in any way. I don't want to get into the issues we deal with around our business, because right now it's about you and how you feel. We welcome all kinds of people in this business. We have many gay customers. We have transgender performers. I'm ignorant to the whole thing, how it all works, but in no way do we ever mean to discriminate against you. And obviously we have a little discrepancy what was said, but I offer you the deepest apologies, and you're more than welcome to be in our business at any time you want. Next horse race. Drinks are on me here. Come on down. Thanks, Rick.
No problem. So we do intend to move forward in a dialogue with the city. Certainly, Mr. Taylor is going to examine what options are in front of Bree. But we thank you for coming out and covering this. I think the most important thing here is that a segment of our community feels from time to time and far too frequently that they are something less than human beings. So we want to affirm their humanity today. Thank God for that apology and for a way to move forward and a way to change this city and our wider community for the better. This is the Arizona we know, an Arizona where apologies flow freely and where people, no matter what they look like, who they are, where they're from, what color they are, what shape they are, what they like, what they don't like, they're free to visit our establishments and to expect peace and respect everywhere they go. So with that, we'll open it up for some questions. Any questions?
Is the apology enough? Will you come back and watch the horse race here?
Probably not. I mean, to be all honest with you, it's a little kind of spooky walking into here. So, I mean, I live in Gilbert, so this is just happened to be a place that I was parked across from as a happenstance. But, I appreciate the gesture.
Is the apology enough? Are you done? Is it over?
I forgive. I don't forget.
Do you file a complaint with the city of Tempe?
It's a matter of changing policy, not the apology, but the policy.
And I'll answer that question. As you know, as the attorney for Miss Sandy, the city of Tempe has rules and regulations. And one of the rules and regulations and ordinances that was passed, no discrimination. If you refuse service to somebody, that's discrimination. We accept the apology from the manager today, and we're going to see what we can do from here on. But this could be over. This might not be over. But we want to say this. Discrimination is wrong, no matter who it is, especially in a restaurant. You can't refuse service to anybody. Thank you.
Will you file a complaint?
Excuse me?
Will you file a complaint?
We're going to look at all options possible.
What else can you do but file a complaint?
Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing we could do. But we do thank the manager for coming out here and for doing an apology. So we do appreciate that. And that takes a lot of guts to come out on camera to apologize. But the bottom line is it was wrong with happened to Miss Sandy. That's the bottom line.
Or you want some kind of punishment? I mean, you seem like everybody got along really well here. It seemed like you guys got
No,
some
I'm not saying-
resolution. Are we still going to try to punish the bar in some way?
No, what I'm saying is we're going to look at all options possible. There's an attorney.
As you acknowledge, there's just one option.
Yeah, to file a complaint. And if we decide to do that, I'm going to talk to my client, Miss Sandy. If we decide to do that, we will. But if not, we won't. But we do appreciate that the manager did come out here today in front of the camera and to apologize. And that's one thing Miss Sandy wanted. And we thank you for doing that.
And there's
Have you reprimanded the employee? Have you reprimanded the employee?
No, I have not, because it was basically an honest mistake made by the person dealing with certain things we have in our area, and it was a lapse of judgment. The girl's 20 years old. She's worked here a week and a half, and she had confused Miss Sandy with somebody else that does certain things around our business, and it's a complete misunderstanding. So, like I said, Miss Sandy's welcome here anytime. We have plenty of our customers are gay, transgenders, more than welcome to come here anytime.
Let me say this.
Explain the law to the employee.
To that,
I don't know what the law is.
To that question, that's what I'm speaking to. We also have to deal with awareness, okay, about the policies that are in place. There's two problems. One, Tempe passed the ordinance saying no discrimination, race, creed, religion, sex, LGBTQ, or otherwise. They have not informed the businesses in their city about that. Even their police department was not fully informed about that. When Miss Sandy brought it to their attention, they told her that her knowledge of the law was incorrect. She called back the following day and cited statute and received an apology from the Tempe Police Department. Clearly, the owner and operator of this establishment isn't aware of it either. Now, is that his fault? I'm not willing to say that it entirely is, because it's incumbent upon the leaders of this city to make sure that people are fully informed about their laws dealing with discrimination. The other problem we have is with our state's anti-discrimination laws. They protect gays and lesbians, blacks and other minorities, women, everyone, but the statute does not speak specifically to transgender individuals. And clearly, that's changing, and I think it is important that we identify that particular segment to make sure that they don't experience things like this.
Arizona's anti-discrimination laws do not protect gays or lesbians.
Is that my understanding? But I guess the ordinance, the city ordinance did. But I guess what we're saying, is we are seeking to amend our state statute to protect members of the LGBTQ community. That's where we're going with that. That we need a change statewide so that in every community, people who look like Briana Sandy and others are protected and not discriminated against when they come into our establishments.
Yeah, and I'd like to say something too. A little over a mile away from here in Mesa, there are no laws on the books there like there are here in Tempe. There's only a handful of towns or cities in this whole state of millions and millions of people. So only a few municipalities protect us. I mean, we are the most downtrodden, most discriminated, most targeted for violence group of people in society. The only thing that would make me a higher target of discrimination or violence if I were a transgender woman of color. There should be no prejudice, there should be no mistreatment, no discrimination against any human being, but especially for those of us who are transgender. And I don't know if you know, but our community has the highest rate of attempted suicides and, unfortunately, successful suicides. If I wasn't a confident individual and I didn't have a strong faith in my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, I would have felt really, really destroyed by what happened to me. And if I could have been one of those people who was on the verge of something like that could create shame and cause them permanent, distress to the point where they might even take their lives. So we need to just work together and just treat people as people. We're all people. Instead of pointing fingers at each other, why don't we find our commonalities and open our arms to each other? I'm just like you. I've got 3 kids. My youngest child is special needs. I've been alienated from my 2 oldest children for a year and a half because they couldn't accept my change. I've taken a lot of losses. I was kicked out of my church back in August for simply becoming female. I didn't go to the media for that, and it's a very high-profile church. I have been accepted by another church here in the Valley who accommodates my son's special needs and welcomed me with open arms to not only be a member, but also to plug in and serve right down the street from where I live. So, I mean, I'm truly blessed in that aspect, but I'm one of the few who's, I mean, I don't like using the term white privilege, but I believe I do have white privilege to some degree, or maybe a little higher class privilege or something. I don't see class or color or any of that, but there are people who do, and I can tell you that there are people who are treated way worse than me, and I can tell you it's just not right. And so I would like to see the state change the laws for all of us who are transgender and all of the LGBT plus community.
You were shaking your head when this was referred to as a misunderstanding. Is there any way that this could have been?
Well, I mean, I called back on the phone and made sure that she knew what I was not. I was not a hooker, and I tried to explain to her the only reason that I wanted to come inside and why would they refuse me to do that, because I couldn't believe that something like that can happen in the year 2015. And it's sad that something like that could. And remember, if I was just a mile away, they could have done this and then no big deal, and we probably wouldn't even be standing here. It would just be, oh well, too bad, so sad. But it did happen in an actively involved, protective of LGBT rights community. And I've never been an LGBT activist or anything until just recently I became a member of the LGBT community. And you have to be when you're one of us, because we need each other to support and to learn. And I would never have known if people wouldn't even have posted. I only posted one post on my Facebook, one single post, just to all my friends, and it got shared I don't know how many thousands of times. It was a public post. And I mean, this is, like I said, I didn't seek this. All I wanted to do was come in and have a drink and see a horse race and witness history, not necessarily make history.
So, to close everything up, we just want to hope that Tempe Tavern learns from this mistake and we can move forward from this. And thank you. If you have any other questions, you can follow us up and you have our information. Thank you.
Are you trying to set an example? Because you want an apology, you got one, but you still seem to be not quite happy with it. So are you trying to set, now that this is a big deal?
Well, I've already been really defamed. They said, well, they thought I was a prostitute. Well, I was probably the most unsexy prostitute because I was wearing, a blue jumper sundress. I mean, in Clark's sandals. So it's not exactly what I would call somebody who would be attracting, clientele or something like that. I mean, I look like a normal individual like yourself wearing a dress, Could you imagine if someone asked you if you were transgender? I mean, and why would and to leave? I mean, why would anybody do that? And why should it make a difference?
Okay, but even though they apologized, you still want more or something else?
Well, I do. Like I said, they thought I was a prostitute. Then they thought I was a customer next door at the adult establishment. Even if I were either of those things, how does that make me any less worthy to be served? If I have money, my money's as good as anybody else's money. Jesus loved prostitutes, right?
And what we hope happens today is that people learn from the mistake. The apology is a chance to reconcile the issue between a person and an establishment, but it's also a teachable moment and an opportunity to learn. So that's what we're hoping, is that this business, they learn from it and change what needs to be changed with respect to policy and education about the ordinance to ensure that in the future, individuals, particularly from the LGBTQ community, no longer face this kind of discrimination in establishments like this.
Why did you not reach out to the store, the bar manager sooner. I mean, you were prepared to do a press conference outside of the tavern here, and you hadn't spoken to them up until now. Why haven't you given them a chance to hear their side of the story?
Because the best apologies come organically, and this apology came about organically, and I can appreciate that. I can appreciate that. I think the community can too. We don't force anything. We can make an appeal as civil rights advocates, but we can't force anything. And this apology came organically and without much urging. I say to commend the owner of this establishment. Manager, excuse me. Any other questions?
How are you, Rick?
All right, thank you.
How do you feel about it?
Hopefully everything's resolved. I mean, I just hope everything's resolved.
All right, it looks like we are having some technical difficulties, and that press conference pretty much had wrapped up at this point. You guys got the gist of it.
It got a little awkward.
It did get a little awkward. Not gonna lie, it did get a little awkward.
Yeah.
I said, wait. I want to hear what this manager is saying right now.
You don't agree with how things actually?
No. I don't agree with how some of the things that were told, allegedly said to Briana here. But again, it's about her today. I don't want to get into it. All I want to do is we welcome everybody in this place. We got a long history of it. We run burlesque shows that have transgender, gays, women. We've been doing it for years. So unfortunately, this is a black eye on our establishment right now. We're just looking to turn it around. So we apologize. Like I said, you're more than welcome to come in anytime you like.
So what do you intend to change, or do you intend to...
Well, we just gotta, unfortunately, I don't want to stand up here and say about the issues that go on in this area, but there are issues that are relative to our particular area and our business that a mistake like this could have been made. So it's unfortunate that happened. Yeah, and we just have to educate our staff on the ordinance, and I need to educate myself, quite honestly. I mean, we don't know what's going on, but we thought, actually my employee thought that something else was going on with Miss Sandy, and it turns out it wasn't true. It was an error in judgment, and she was just asked to leave. So
do you regularly deny service to prostitutes?
Well, I don't assume any business would love having prostitution or drugs in their business, and we don't allow any of those people that knowingly do that. But unfortunately, she was confused with someone else that normally frequents the area and was asked to leave. Like I said, the girl's 20. She worked here a year and a half. And excuse me?
Week and a half.
Oh, it's a year and a half? Yeah, I'm sorry, a week and a half. Yeah, she just worked here a week and a half. I just wish it could have been handled, and no, it's not a forced apology. If she would have emailed me, like I wish would have happened, this could all been handled and been out of this, I have no issue. That's how I normally resolve my problems. I don't like responding to social media stuff because I myself don't buy into it, and stuff gets fabricated, spun, and as you saw what happened. So, but hopefully everything's resolved. As far as I'm concerned, it is, and I hope she's happy. If she's not, we'll do, and we'll go forward.
I will make one final appeal while the two of them are here. No matter what side of this issue you're on, I think I speak for both of them when I say we're asking for an end to the violent threats. There have been threats made against Sandy. There have been threats made against this establishment. People saying they want to do them physical harm or other, acts of violence or harassment. And we're asking for that to stop. I don't think either side, even though they agree to disagree on some of the facts,
The reception is too much, and I think again we've heard what we needed to hear.
Got the gist of it there.
Yeah, we've been streaming that for about 35 minutes now. That was a pretty lengthy press conference. I didn't expect it to be.
Well, it was just. It kind of made me squirm a little bit at some points, only because when you have these two sides that you were forcing them together on live TV, and then it was kind of going back and forth, and toward the end the manager was like, well, I still disagree with certain parts of the story. It just was like a little uncomfortable, but let's hope that they were able to figure it out.
Why did they do the press conference inside?
That was the first thing I thought when I saw it pop up on News Now. I knew that they were going to have it at the Tempe Tavern, but I thought it was backdrop, and
outside,
then
typically, especially if this is the establishment that you're, I'm not saying attacking, but the establishment that you had a problem with.
Right, and up until the news conference, from what I was understanding, that the Tempe Tavern people hadn't spoken yet, and then so when they had it inside, and then you see the manager or the owner popping up and then I don't know. It seemed a little bit uncomfortable to me, but it's live television. I guess it was interesting to watch.
It
unfold.
was really interesting to watch.
So I still don't understand. Her attorney did kind of mention they're looking into
Benjamin Taylor.
Yeah, to see what else they may do. So I'm not sure if they're still talking about legal action or maybe a citation from the city for violating the non-discrimination policies. I'm not sure. I just was a little. I think some of the other people are here saying the same thing, that it just was a little bit like, what's going on here?
A lot of people were very confused. A lot of people, I noticed someone saying that she's digging a hole when they were listening to Briana Sandy.
See where this is going to go from here.
I know.
It did seem toward the end that it was still kind of maybe two sides to the story as far as what the manager was saying, what the server said. So
right.
I don't know. That it's getting national attention though. This
really,
story.
This story?
Yeah, it's taken off. I googled it earlier just to see. I sometimes do that with our stories to see what the reach is and what different TV stations, and there's stations in Nashville and Florida running this story. So yeah,
it's going everywhere. Wow.
So and then Courtney's going to have the full wrap up of that story coming up a little bit later on.
Right. Tree saying so she was going there to watch the race. Is that what I'm understanding? Yes.
That's what she said, yeah.
And then I guess there was some confusion about prostitution and...
I don't know. That's when people... they both started talking a lot, and then kind of some of the stories weren't...
adding up.
Who knows? I don't know. This is what confuses me.
Melinda thinks haters will be haters and she needs to get a thicker skin, but it's about money anyways.
I mean, if she truly was kicked out of there, like in the way that she said, then there's an issue, If they said we're not, what her quote was, we don't serve your kind here. Well, that's not okay. But the manager was saying it was not worded in that manner. I don't really.
Right. It's just that I can't serve you.
Right.
And there's a big difference though between I can't serve you and we don't serve your kind.
Exactly.
So.
Well.
Glenn Adams, I just want to acknowledge Glenn. So tired of people feeling like they're being picked on in every aspect of their daily lives. Get some thicker skin and suck it up.